Okay, tonight is Abraham Verghese's talk at the Central Library regarding his new book, A Covenant of Water. So let's go. I just had a panic that Verghese's talk was last night. So it's not, it's tonight. This is the library behind me, the 4th Avenue entrance.
Wow, what a wonderful sight to see. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Hey everybody, it's Sarah. Welcome back to Roadworthy. So this is a weekly reads. So let me start off by recapping um, the author event last night with Abraham Verghese. For those of you who don't know, Abraham Verghese is a physician. He's a professor at Stanford, and he made very clear that he considers himself a physician. Writing is a hobby and a passion of his, but he does not consider it his profession. And I'll get back to that. But last night he was talking about his new book, The Covenant of Water. Covenant of Water is a sprawling family epic that goes through 3 generations of a Indian family in Kerala. And it's sort of the relationships between these family members, but also with people in their village, people in the larger Christian community that exists in Kerala. This is really, like a lot of family epics. This one is really about family secrets. How family secrets can sometimes protect people, but can also really be quite destructive once those secrets become known. On a sentence level, Verghese is a beautiful writer. I mean, he's so good at descriptions. The monsoon, the food, the clothes, all of that is great. His characterization is wonderful. I mean, these are 3-dimensional characters. I mean, even the secondary characters, in just a few sentences you get a sense of their personalities. I mean, even the elephant that works on the family farm has a distinct personality. So again, I was invested in these characters, making you really feel sort of the ups and downs that these characters go through. All of that is wonderful. For me, I struggled with this book being so long. I'm not sure it needed to be this long. I'm not sure. Again, there's a lot of very charming anecdotes that I'm not sure always needed to be there. Verghese talked about last night in the talk that one of the inspirations for this book was a document that his mother wrote when she was in her late 80s for a 5-year-old niece who had asked, what was it like growing up in Kerala? And she wrote out this document. And Verghese talks a lot about how a lot of the anecdotes that she described made their way into this manuscript. And I think that's one of the things that might have contributed to the length of this manuscript. Um, that there were just colorful details that he wanted to include that are charming or funny or, you know, but I'm not sure really furthered the story. Now, jumping back to my earlier comment that Verghese considers himself a physician and that writing is a hobby and a passion. This book has a lot of medical stuff in it. It has, surgical technique, birthing complications, the pathophysiology of leprosy, um, just in in a lot. Um, and I'm not sure all that detail needed to be there. But again, because I think he considers himself a physician, and he's a physician, he's a teacher, right? And so I think he's wanting to share, right, and include all of this detail because he finds it interesting. He's also an infectious disease doctor, so again, writing pages upon pages about leprosy, is right up his alley. And his enthusiasm for the topic, right? He wants to share it. Some of the surgical discussions can be kind of graphic, and so again, I'm not sure that all needed to be there. I did think of perhaps more squeamish readers. I'm not sure I have a point here, but it's an interesting observation. There was a large number of physicians or healthcare workers in the audience last night. And again, the audience, is going to be very pro, right? Like, why would you go to an author event if you didn't love the book or you didn't love the author's past works? Um, and so clearly he has a following with the fiction reading healthcare community. So again, this is an audience that's going to be very receptive to reading pages upon pages about leprosy or surgical technique for hand reconstruction. Um, so again, I'm slightly suspicious that some lay readers might be skipping through some of those pages. But then again, it could be me, right? There were lots of people last night at the talk that talked about how they were sorry to see this book end, that they just were immersed in the world and wished it could keep going. I'm glad I went to the talk, though. He is very personable and very charming. I'm sure his students love him. I'm sure his patients love him. He just was witty and very erudite. Anyway, if you have an opportunity to see him talk, it's definitely worth it. He's a wonderful speaker. Um, I listen to this on audiobook, and I do recommend the audiobook. It is actually read by Abraham Verghese himself, and he talked a lot about the audiobook creation experience, and he actually auditioned to be the audio narrator and actually did some training and for it as well. And so you could tell, when he was doing his reading, um, you know, very emotive, changes in tone and pitch to really enhance that experience. So again, definitely worth checking out him in person if you get that opportunity. The other thing that I finished last week is A Distant Shore by Caryl Phillips. I'm going to put this down because it's shiny library cover. This is a book. The setup is Solomon, who is an immigrant from an unnamed African country who is working in England as a handyman, night watchman for a new housing development. And Dorothy is an older retired woman who has moved into that development. And the two of them form an unlikely sort of relationship. That's how the book starts. And then Phillips sort of takes us backwards in time to see how did both of these characters end up there. This book jumps around in time. It jumps around between Solomon and Dorothy's perspectives, jumps around in place. So again, we'll see Solomon in Africa, and then we'll see him in England. And this book is really about loneliness and isolation. Both Dorothy and Solomon are isolated geographically. Where this this small housing development is sort of on the outskirts of town. They literally live on a cul-de-sac. So again, at the end of the street. They don't have family. So in many ways, they're incredibly, incredibly isolated. And one of the things I think that Phillips does very well in this book is as he takes you through their histories, you begin to see how and why these two characters become increasingly isolated and distanced from other people. And I think that was really, really well done. I liked this book. What I didn't like is, again, that shifting of point of view and time. I sometimes got confused because sometimes there would be a space break, like a section break, that was an obvious clue that, oh, okay, we're going to a different point of view. But sometimes there wouldn't. There would just be a paragraph break. I did read this for Caribathon. Phillips is from St. Kitts. So what's interesting to me is the character's African, not Caribbean. And so I don't quite know the rationale for that. What am I currently reading? I'm currently reading Nevada by Imogen Binnie. This is a book about a trans woman living in New York City, Brooklyn, and was published in 2014. So there's a lot in here about Maria's. Do people know I'm trans? Can people tell that I'm trans? Commenting on the differences between trans men and trans women. Her challenges during sex. Not, feeling disconnected from her body. So I'm only like 50 pages in at most, but Binnie definitely has a lot to say about the challenges of the trans experience. I'm enjoying it for the commentary on this character's trans experience, but I'm not sure I'm enjoying the book yet. I'll leave it at that. So that's what I'm reading this week. My parents are coming to town later today. So I suspect my reading over the next few days is going to be impacted. So we'll see how that goes. All right. hope you all are enjoying what you're reading. And I will check in with you again next week. All right. See ya.